Good afternoon, everyone. This is Madison Keenan here with Laugh, London, Eat Madness, and I am sitting with the wonderful Stefani Boyd. Stefani, how are you?
Hello, Madison. I'm great. So nice to see you.
You as well. You as well. I know that we were both rushing to get here. We finally made it, and you are in Sacramento, California, correct?
I am.
So, how's it going? How's the weather over in California? We're on totally different coasts right now.
Oh my gosh, we're having a spectacular late spring over here in Sacramento. It's unseasonably cool. We've had like 80s, which oftentimes it's in the hundreds and higher here by this time of year. So we're just soaking in the sunshine and the nice
Soaking in the
mild
sun.
weather. It's beautiful.
I love that. So I know I didn't give you a too formal of an introduction. I figured, let's just jump right into it and let the listeners hear a little bit about who you are. And I know that you have an interesting background into the mortgage industry, a little bit of family, but then also kind of a complete career switch. So if you would like to just kind of tell everyone a little bit about yourself, and we'll just go from there.
All right, sounds like a plan. So I usually start with the fact that I was a teenage mom and I decided at 16 to have my wonderful son, who's now 33. So a lot has happened in the past 33 years. Because of that, I graduated high school 2 years early, went straight into college at 16, and got a degree in criminal justice. So I was just a young upstart. I was kind of a rebel in a lot of ways. And I ended up getting hired at the public defender's office as a criminal defense investigator.
And you
So
hear those sirens going on
I
as you
know that was great
as you say that wasn't even a sound effect.
timing. That was awesome timing.
I know that was perfect timing. So, okay. So
So
let's
yeah, in the big city of Sacramento, there's a lot of crimes. And my job as a very young 21-year-old mom was to go out and find the victims and witnesses of the crimes, find out what happened, get statements, diagram crime scenes, testify in court, and just all those exciting things that you see on TV crime shows was my real life job. And
so you mean to say that what we see on TV is pretty accurate to what happens in the real world?
totally, 100%. Yes, it's just like that. No.
Well, you know what's funny is as you were saying that and you're just, talking about the investigation and going through the whole process, I don't know about you, but sometimes as a mortgage lender, I definitely feel like I'm doing some sort of criminal investigation. We're doing very deep backgrounds into our clients and things. So I'm curious. I mean, there's a lot to unpack here, but I guess I'll start backwards. Do you feel as though starting in the criminal justice industry and then hopping over to real estate, are there any skills that you feel like you carried over from that job to this job? Did it, help you in any way? Just kind of
Oh,
realize that you want to help people?
so many ways. Yes. From the service attitude to just wanting to help people, to be of service to them. Originally, my family's mortgage company focused on first time buyers with bad credit. So all of our marketing went out to renters with 500 credit scores, and then we got them to call us and we helped them fix their credit and buy a house. And so when I went into real estate, I felt like we were the public defender of real estate. It was
It
that's
it
how I
really
focused
is.
on. We wanted all the poor people with bad credit. Basically, my clients from the public defender's office, we wanted them to call us for loans
Yeah.
because we knew that those were the most grateful people who a lot of mortgage lenders and realtors don't want to bother with them. They want, rich borrowers with 800 credit scores because they're just slam dunks on the loan. They have a down payment. You don't have to do anything extra for them. But we just always really loved helping young families and first time buyers get into their first home and become homeowners. It's just like the most fulfilling aspect of this job. So yeah, the interviews though, I got my interviewing skills from the public defender's office
There you
because
go.
I mean, we have to really get in there and ask you all of your personal questions. And a lot of people, if they do have rough credit, they might have certain feelings around that. They're embarrassed. They're probably have gone through some difficulties in their personal life, maybe lost their job, maybe lost a loved one. There's a lot of reasons why people end up with poor credit. So I feel like it helped me with the empathy, with building rapport, with the detail oriented nature of a mortgage origination. We really had
Yeah,
uh,
no, 100%.
organization of a file, just so many skills translated over from the criminal world to the loan world, where every once in a while we also run into criminals.
We do have criminals every once in a while, unfortunately. And it's funny you say that, because I always say to my clients, I'm like, my goal is to help you. So anything that you don't disclose to me, trust that it will be found out about. And if it's not through me, it's through title, it's through the attorneys, it's through some other party. So I'm sure you have experiences where you're going through a situation, you have a really great relationship with the client, you're getting all the information. All of a sudden, and again, this is maybe my personal experience, but I've had a couple situations where all of a sudden you get halfway through the process and it's like, oh, bankruptcy, oh, child support, alimony, like all these things that we try and talk them through in the beginning, or we try and investigate in the beginning as loan officers. And then there's always things that, they don't disclose it to us. We will find out about it. So I completely think that, it's relevant that you started in that field and then came over to the mortgage side of things. But kind of circling back, I know that, a lot to unpack there, but I'm interested to kind of hear. I feel like clearly you started at a young age of just having this resilience about yourself, where you get pregnant at 16, you have two options. You decide that you're going to create a life for you and your son. You go to school, you just continue to go to school. With that in itself, I think, is a huge accomplishment. And maybe, kind of talking about the empathy more, do you feel as though your life experiences up until now have also helped you in your career in terms of like the empathy that you were talking about, and just serving those underserved communities, whether it be single mothers or the low credit score, low income individuals?
Oh, definitely. I absolutely favor the underdogs. And
Me too.
I joke that my whole life and my career has largely been motivated by spite, just because, I had to go into this thing with the attitude of I'll show them,
Yeah,
because everybody thought it was a horrible idea to become a mother at 16. And they only could see me becoming a high school dropout and, being on welfare for the rest of my life.
right. Like that's just the stereotypical thing that everyone thinks about when they think of a single mom, especially a teen mom, let alone a single mom, but a teen mom.
Exactly. So, I just had that attitude of I'll show them and I won't become that statistic. And then the beautiful thing, if there's any teen moms out there listening, they pay you to go to college. So, I mean, unless you come from a rich family and you don't qualify for financial aid. I did not come from a rich family. In fact, my mom was also a single mom, and I watched her build her real estate and mortgage business, which was a huge inspiration to me. But because I didn't come from a rich family, I qualified for financial aid. I got, maybe $10,000 a semester to live on. Plus, I got grants and student loans. And it really improved the quality of my life immensely to realize that I didn't need to stay in high school for 2 more years. Or, if you're at the end of high school, definitely go for it. Go down to your community college and get your FAFSA in there, get your financial aid together, and start getting paid to go to school and figure out what you want to do with your life. Because I never would have guessed that I would end up a criminal defense investigator for the public defender. In
That's not
the
something you just wake up and think you want to do when you're 16.
Yeah, no, totally not. And in the college classes, it's really law enforcement focused. So almost everybody that's in that program is planning on a career in law enforcement, which I was also. I was hoping to, well, I wanted to become a correctional officer. So I actually went through the correction officer academy. And because I was a bit of a rebel and all my friends were hoodlums as a teenager, when they did my background investigation, they were like, no,
Oh, you got it.
you if I would have waited another 5 years, but because I was 19 in the academy and I was 15 being rebel, with hoodlum friends, they were like, no, 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 this was just
You got to
yesterday.
grow up a little bit. Come
Yes,
back when you're
come
come
back
back
a
when
little
you're
later.
ready to
So
not actually come.
yeah, so the public defender, because really, given the choice, most people want to go work for the district attorney rather than the public defender. It does take a special kind of person who's willing to go work for the public defender, knowing that most people are guilty. Most of the people are terrible people. I mean, a lot of you, it's just kind of generally true, but we do it because what if they're not guilty? What, everyone
Right.
deserves a defense no matter what. Everyone deserves their side of the story to be told, even if they're a horrible person. And maybe especially if they're a horrible person, because you automatically just discount them as a human if they're a horrible person, and you want to just lock them up and throw away the key or put them in the electric chair or whatever. But we still have to defend those people, even the most horrible people.
Yeah.
So,
And I feel like that directly translates right back to what we're talking about, these underserved markets in the mortgage industry.
for
How
sure.
often do we see, especially in today's market right now, we've got veterans. We just celebrated Memorial Day weekend. How many veterans right now aren't able to utilize their VA benefits because they are being, just completely torn down by cash buyers and conventional buyers, or the ones with credit scores that don't have the perfect credit. They don't have 20% down. But there's usually, and I feel like as women, we have a tendency to pull this out of clients more than men. And this is just, again, my opinion. But in my experience, I feel as though I'm willing to look at the whole story, where a lot of the times the men just want to treat this as a business transaction. They don't want to hear all the extra fluff. They don't want to know about the car accident and the divorce. They just want to know the facts and how they can get it through the door. So I think
Yeah.
as women in this industry, it's a superpower of ours to be able to look at a client who maybe has done some wrong in their past, not legally, but just bad credit, made some poor financial decisions. And we're the ones that are sitting and defending them in their corner, because most other people out there, like the banks, are just, someone else, another lender, guy or girl, wouldn't take the time to, this is just too difficult. I'll, pass it off to someone else because this isn't worth my time. Or I always hear, loan officers that don't want to take a certain loan because of the purchase price.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, I don't know about you, but some of my lowest loan sizes have brought me the most business. They've sent me the most referrals. We've treated them no differently than we would treat $1 million client. And in that situation, I've always found that when you do right by the underserved, it comes back to you full circle.
Absolutely. And I mean, I do think on a more esoteric level too, it really is like a law of the universe,
Yeah.
the
Oh,
uh what you put out you get back, whether it's the golden rule or the rule of three, or some traditions may believe that you get 10 times back what you put out. And so I mean, it definitely count, whether it's karma or whatever you want to call it. If you're putting out good in the world, good is coming back to you. And if you're putting out bad in the world, bad's coming back to you. So it definitely helps to constantly check yourself and make sure that your output of good is much higher than your output of bad, because everyone has a crummy day sometimes. But
yeah. And
uh,
I find myself constantly kind of talking with a lot more. So I also focus a lot on first time home buyers. I feel like they're the ones that need the most handholding. They really are receptive to education and just kind of understanding all of their options that are out there. And one of the things that they'll kind of come back to me all the time once we give them the pre approval and they start the games of going out there and looking for houses is they're like, this is like an animalistic, like, they just weren't prepared once we walked through, this is what the pre-approval, this is how much you're affording. Yeah, we're kind of doing everything gently. And then all of a sudden they get out into the real estate market and they're like, oh my gosh, like this is, what we have to deal with. And then there's so many other parties involved once they're under contract. So it's hard to find, in my opinion, like-minded individuals in this industry who really want to do right by clients versus doing right by their pockets. So when you do find them, and universe always kind of connects us with different people, but I I agree with you. There's a lot of crazy out there.
For sure. And I mean, we want clients for life, right?
Yeah,
In my mom's company, I got the pleasure of watching her, and helping her clients and their kids and their grandkids coming in now and buying houses.
exactly.
So when my mom started her company in like the mid 80s, my son was born, maybe 5 years later. And now he just recently bought his first house. His friends are buying houses. And
Yay.
before that, me and my friends were buying houses. And so, everybody, um, up until I started my own shop, came to my mom and me. And we just, kept it in the family. And you want those people to send you all of their friends and relatives. And it's way more about the relationship than the transaction. So I do agree that I think it's just kind of in their nature. Men are more maybe transactional, more, just check it off the list. Not a lot of babysitting, hand holding, coddling.
Right.
And yeah, I think that is that female nurturing aspect that we have to nurture a lead. I mean, I've worked with clients for 2 or 3 years before they were ready to actually buy a house. And so many people are just, they have no idea what the process is like, where to start, what to do. And maybe if they saw their parents or their family living in an apartment and never owning a home, like it never even crossed their mind that they could own a home someday. So
Right.
not only did it never occur to them, they actually have no idea where to start, and there's a lot of wage earners who make great money, or, at least a living wage, and they have, two borrowers, a two income household, or maybe I'm seeing a lot more intergenerational borrowing going on with the kids and the
The
parents getting on
parents.
a loan
Yep.
together. And I mean, I think in this market, as the rates are so crazy and the prices are so crazy, we're going to see more of that in the future until, one or the other changes. Prices have to come down a whole bunch, with which comes with its own set of problems, or rates have to come down, which also, it's all problems. So we just got to,
Or just the minimum wage has to come up, right? I think like
yeah,
one of the other things that actually I was listening to one of the other podcasts you were on, and something that you had actually talked about was how housing is less affordable today than it ever was, but also the cost of living is also at an all-time high. So normally I feel like there's a little bit of a push pull, I feel like even last year when we were having these initial rate hikes and we were trying to talk with clients and make sense of it or at least try and explain it to them, it's like, well, when the prices come down, interest rates go up, and then when the interest rates go up, prices come down, and like right now we're not seeing any of that. It's kind of just in this weird standstill where we don't know which way it's going to go. People were hoping that because of everything that happened with the interest rates hiking, that all of a sudden, home prices were going to come down, they'd be able to underbid. And we saw a little bit of that for maybe a short period of time. And again, this is coming from Jersey, so I don't know, you can attest to what it's like on the West Coast, but I never saw a slowdown in the multiple bid or overbidding wars, regardless of where the rates were at.
yeah. I mean, I think that definitely is specific to the price range, but for sure, if we're talking about first time buyers in that entry level price range,
Mhm.
there's just no inventory.
Yeah.
So we're having, in my market recently, one of my appraiser friends posted about an appraisal he did on a house for 299,000 with 60 offers on it. And I mean, I don't know how many of them were over asking price, but I'm
You
pretty
have
sure
to assume at least half, right?
yeah. So that, and that's just what we're not seeing as many offers in the maybe 5, 6, 700,000, but still multiple offers because the inventory is low, because those people who have a 2.375 rate, why are they going to sell or move and go
Yeah.
get a rate of 7% today, or 6 1/8, whatever.
And it depends on, I always say to people too, depending on your circumstance. If you bought a house a few years ago and you put the minimal down, yes, your home has appreciated in the last few years, but you still might be bottom up by the time you go and sell it.
Yeah.
Or you might not walk away with as much money as you thought you would. Or I have a couple of situations right now where they want to sell, but they know even if they sell their home for more than, whatever they list it for, they're not going to walk away with a significant amount of money that they feel is going to be a strong offer on whatever home they're going to look for.
Right. And
So
then
it's a whole cycle.
It is. And it's a whole problem because if you're an ethical person in this business, then a lot of times at times like these, we have to tell our clients, no, I'm sorry. My advice is please let me go another month without a paycheck because I don't want to do a loan for you. Please let me help you by
It's hard. It's
go
hard.
go home and eat beans and rice and save your money, because even though you hate your FHA mortgage insurance, and even though FHA mortgage insurance has gone down, your rate at 2.25%, you're going to pay. There's just no way you should do that and get into a rate of 6.25%.
Right. And it's always just such a hard thing to kind of, I think of myself, I call myself like the mortgage mentor. Like I want to mentor you through this process. I want to treat you and talk to you and teach you the way that I would hope that someone would teach and treat my family, my friends, whoever. So when there's certain situations where you're looking at this from like a very logical, because we don't have as much emotional attachment, right? Like they fall in love with the home, whatever situation they need to get out. And we're looking at this from just logic, and we're like, hey, you can qualify, but like, is this really what you want to set yourself up for? But then on the reverse, I think about how many people, kind of talking about like the nurturing of leads, where I've worked with plenty of clients that they came to me in 2020, 2021, they still haven't bought, and in them waiting, they've they're, you know what I mean? Like whatever they were qualified for 2 years ago does not exist for them anymore.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's to say, is now a good time or is now not a good time? Well, I can't predict where things are going to be a year or 2 years from now. So it has to just be something that makes financially sense for you, regardless of what time the market's in, right? Like financially at the end of the day, are you comfortable with that mortgage payment? Knowing how you live as a
And
person.
knowing that as a renter, you're flushing 100% of your rent, and you're giving
Right.
100% of your rent to your landlord, and you're paying
Yeah.
100% of your landlord's kids' braces and whatever else, So yeah, even if your mortgage is more than your rent's going to be, I always advise people that buying is still going to put you in a more secure position than continuing to rent. But yeah, I definitely had a few people in 2020 and 2021 that were just convinced the market was going to soften up and the prices were going to come down and this crazy bidding war nonsense was going to be over, and they were just going to wait, and they waited themselves out of being homeowners.
Those are the ones that aren't answering the phone
Yeah.
calls anymore when we go to follow up with our nurture leads.
Yeah, no.
I got nothing to say.
I mean, it's the refis I was really referring to earlier, where I still have people that call, and I mean, everybody refied a couple years ago. If they didn't, but now my wholesale lenders are trying to get me to refi people and do, streamline FHA refi and pay off your debt and this and that. And so I have people calling me that have maybe talked to a friend that refinanced and did a streamline refi or something. And those are really the ones where, I mean, unless they've been just living it up on credit, they lost their job and they just got a new job, but they maxed out all their credit and now they're drowning in debt in their new job. And, maybe that guy needs a streamline refi. But my other people, it's just, it's not going to make sense for everyone. So definitely is an individual case by case, but it definitely, I think that there are people who would have refied my client who called me and said, what do you think I should do? Like,
Right.
and that's the guy I'm not friends with.
Yeah. And it's so, and whether or not it's like a past client or just someone when, you have a client that's already been working with another lender, or that client's working with an agent that's trying to convince them to work with their lender instead. I just had a situation recently where it was like, well, this lender said that they can give me this with no points. And I said, but that lender never took your application. I'm telling you everything specifically to your loan scenario, your specific financial situation. If you want, I could just tell you what like the 850 plus credit score, 25% down individual would look like. And maybe those numbers are a little more reflective of what that guy's telling you. But there's just a lot of people. And again, you can't blame lenders and realtors right now. Like, we're also struggling and hurting just as much as the buyers and the sellers are, right? Like, they're in a situation of, I don't know if I should sell. I don't know where I'm going to go. Is now a good time to buy? Is now a good, should I keep renting? And then we're sitting here like, well, we need to get paid. So we need people to buy houses, right? And then that's where I do feel like there's a lot of hasty decisions made in the 11th hour that people in this industry make to benefit them instead of the client in the end.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're up against a lot. But anyway, I think
Well,
what
yeah.
I kind of want to get into with you kind of more is, so we're obviously females and we're in this industry, and kind of talking about the underserved client market that we have in terms of, we try and work with people that, maybe wouldn't be so easily taken by another lender, or another lender wouldn't give them all the options or the time and the patience if they weren't ready to go right then and there within the next 3 months. So I'm also curious, as a female, if you've noticed a shift in the last few years that there's been more single females purchasing real estate. Or if you don't feel like that, what do you think we as women need to do to get out there in front of them to show them?
Wow. Well, I mean, it might just be the company that I keep, because I've always seen and encouraged single women home ownership,
Mhm.
So in my social circles, I associate with a lot of strong single women who are, entrepreneurs or small business owners of one form or another. Um, so yeah, but I definitely think that the challenge that all single people, whether we're women or men these days, is just that one income of a single person. So,
Mhm.
getting in front of, I mean, one thing that I do to get in front of more women prospects is go to networking events all over the place. So, in Sacramento, we're fortunate to have like a whole bunch of different professional networking clubs, I guess, kind of. And so they're all on like Eventbrite, and you can just kind of shop for what
Meet up. Yeah.
and so then once you link up with a few of them and meet a few of the people in them, you find out kind of who the ringleaders are. And so, like, I kind of got in with some ringleaders, and they invite me to all kinds of other networking functions that maybe weren't on my radar. So, I don't know if folks, if that's a normal thing out in every city, but like we have like a happy hour kind of thing where there might be 200 or 300 people in a young professionals network that come together in across all industries, and there's like DJ music, dancing, snacks, food, and just basically a party.
I think we have it's called like the YPN, right?
We
But
have
there
that
are
through our
specifics.
realtor association, yes,
Okay.
and then just through like you might through different professional networking, I found a lot of other professional networks that are not specific to the real estate industry, but definitely the YPN through the Association of Realtors is an awesome place to start. And a lot of times you will meet people in the insurance and title industries, go to those functions. But I've met a lot of investors at these networking events, and just really great people to be friends with too. I made a lot of really interesting friends over the past few years networking, and we get together and do birthday parties and brunches and all kinds of different fun stuff. And it's just like, when we're kids in school, you go to school and you make friends
Yeah.
at school, and it's
Yeah.
like you're at kindergarten and you're like, do you want to be my friend, yes or no? And then you're friends or you're
Yeah.
not.
And
But
then you're
like,
like, I'm gonna bring you to lunch with my friends, and I want you to meet these people, and then those people meet. It's like just back and forth.
yeah, and at school it's really easy to be like, come sit at my table, but like as grown-ups it's really hard, uh unless you are just, I guess, I mean, I think social media has definitely changed the game on that, because that's where I learned about a lot of these different events. But yeah, the networking events are like a free opportunity to just say, hey, come sit at my table. Hey, do you want to be my friend?
Oh
I
yeah.
just walk up to people and I'm like, hey, what are you doing? What are you up to? Like, what business are you in? What's happening? What's going on? What,
That's
what,
the whole nature of our business, right? It's just
yeah.
talking about what you do wherever you go with whomever you meet, because you never know who knows someone that works in the industry, is looking for a property, knows someone that, there's just, I've never been in a situation, whether it's networking or just not networking, but making it a networking event, and not walking away with, like you said, just a sphere of influence.
Yeah.
So
Tons
basically,
of business cards, and then when you have an off day, you just sit there and call the people and say, hey, it was great meeting you at the networking event. And
yeah,
it gives you, it's really like a free lead gen type of thing too, where you can just go through when you have some downtime, maybe jot out some note cards, send them out, like make yourself stand out, make people think of you. I've gotten so many leads and referrals from my networking friends.
yeah.
And
And it's funny because I feel like I do similar situations like that. And it's funny because I have another loan officer that I work with, and she's newer. So she started in July, and I'm part of like a women's mortgage. It's called the MBA, so Mortgage Banking Association. And they were doing a women's golf event. So I was like, hey, do you want to come with us to me? She was like, oh, like, are there going to be realtors there? And I was like, no, it's just mortgage women. And she was like, why would we go to a networking event if we aren't going to meet? And I was like, because it's good to know other women in this industry, right? And the woman that I went to go meet up with is someone that I ended up refinancing her house for her. And she's introduced me to other clients and friends and families of hers who have also refinanced or purchased a home through me. So I said, just because we all work in the same industry doesn't mean that there's not something that we can all gain from one another. And, as women, we all have different skill sets. So
absolutely.
someone
And
might
we
be
got,
really, sorry, what were you saying?
oh, I was going to say we have different products available to
Yeah,
us, you know?
100%.
So, I
It's
mean,
not black and white in this industry. Sometimes
maybe
we
some,
can't do what someone else can do.
exactly. So, yeah, it's definitely handy to have other friends in the industry, whether or not, they're giving you clients, or maybe they're just giving you invaluable knowledge from their fabulous brains.
Right.
Because,
Or there's someone that just understands what you're going through. I have some girls, like I've never actually, we don't do a ton of business together, but if I'm having a bad week or a bad file, I can call them and vent about the situation, and they just understand it a little bit better than my friends or my family might. Or my friends and my family are tired of me talking about the same client for a month. So then they've never heard about it before. And I'm like, you know what? Let me call this person and see if they've gone through a similar situation. And like you said, they just feed you with wisdom and knowledge and insight. So networking will always be invaluable. And I think, from what I can gauge is that you're someone that definitely is building relationships, getting out in front of people face to face. There's no sort of market that you won't tap into or kind of see value in helping clients. And I just say that that's kind of the way to go. I see so many people that limit themselves in this industry. They want to become that it person or that it mortgage girl for a specific market. And then when that market isn't working out, where do you go to next? Right.
yeah.
So I love that you do, just a ton of different things with a ton of different sects of the industry. And it's great.
Yeah, there's never a dull day. And another thing I love to recommend is volunteering, because in addition to networking, volunteering gives you access to people who have enough money that they have free time to volunteer. So, you know, uh,
Yeah.
and they know that you're a wonderful, fabulous person with a service heart because you're volunteering with them at whatever fabulous organization you're volunteering at.
Yeah.
And they already love you just for showing up there because you've got this affinity and this common bond of whatever, you're working towards. And even if it's not the love of the organization or the cause or whatever, it's just that you recognize a kindred soul and a spirit of somebody who wants to volunteer and help their neighbors in one way or another, at a nonprofit or whatever. So, yeah, I've gotten some really great referrals from my friends that I've met volunteering.
Volunteering. Is there anything specifically that you do in your community as of recent that has helped you in terms of business or just meeting different people?
Meals on Wheels has been my most recent. And I've just met some great people, whether they're drivers, employees at Meals on Wheels, people in the community. So what I find is that a lot of people who volunteer are very connected in their community. And so they might, like this one guy that got me into the Meals on Wheels, he also volunteers at the VFW hall, and he does the karaoke and the feeding the vets. And then his wife does this other stuff. And so they're just like so welcoming,
Heavily involved.
friendly. Yeah. And so you end up just meeting like exponential amounts of people, because the people that are there are like super outgoing and, you know, service oriented, and they want to see other people succeed.
Yeah, and I think just outside of, you know, whatever business or networking that you can gain from that, I think that when you're able to kind of attach more than just the transactional of, yes, I take applications and I meet with people for coffee, it's when you get more involved and you kind of blend your passion with your purpose, and you're doing these volunteer things and you're going out and you're meeting people in person instead of sitting behind a desk all day, kind of adds an element to our business, and it kind of makes those hard days feel a little bit less hard, because you know at the end of the day you're doing right by your clients, you're doing right for your communities, you're going out there, you're meeting other people, whether in your industry or just in your general industry as a whole. So I love it. I just think that you're very well-rounded, and I'm sure that that's come with lots of life experience of just how you got into this industry, seeing your mom kind of, you know, pave the way for you. Is your mom still in real estate, or when did she get out of real estate?
She's winding down. She's in and out of retirement. I'd say she's semi-retired.
Yes.
She does a transaction every once in a while, but mostly she's just enjoying she's a great grandma now. So I'm a grandma.
Wow.
The pie of her eye, or whatever, you know, my son, her very first grandson, had a couple of daughters, and so yeah, she's a great grandma, and she's still a great loan officer and a great inspiration as well.
And I'm sure, yeah, she's like your little wing girl. She just will go out there, talk about you. She meets someone, she sends it over to you.
Yeah,
I love that. I love that. Yeah, my aunt was a real estate agent for many years, and then her and my mom opened up their own business a couple years back, upcycling furniture and painting kitchen cabinets and fireplaces and such. But I definitely got a little feel for real estate at a younger age when I would hang out with my cousins, and all of a sudden she has a client that needs to go see a house. So we're all going in the backseat of the car, sitting in the driveway while she goes in there to go show the house to everyone. So I think it's nice when you also have family in the business, because then at least you also have people to look up to, or just kind of help you pave the way. But it seems like you've definitely paved your own way in this whole business. So I love everything that you stand for. I love it. I love it. And one other thing you mentioned was how social media is changing the game. So I'm curious to know what social media platforms you use that you found has helped your business kind of grow, or just what, like you said, is just being able to connect with more people as a whole, finding out these events that you wouldn't have found out about if you weren't on Facebook or something.
Yeah, well, let me start by saying that a lot of people are way better at social media than me. I do not have a TikTok, although I think that I have some TikTok worthy experiences according to some of my friends that are on TikTok, but like I can't wrap my brain around that one. But social media in general terms, you know, just connects us so much more. We get updates about events in our community. You know, there's groups on social media. So certainly I've seen a lot of people who are successful in groups with getting, you know, I've gotten referrals out of groups, and you might be a member of your local discussion group or whatever, and someone puts up that they're looking for a realtor or a recommendation for whatever. I've actually met some really great, I actually stalked a real estate agent on Facebook in one of our local discussion groups, because I kept seeing him commenting on there, and I was like, oh, hey, what's up? And he started posting his open houses. And so I started showing up at his open houses and just making him flyers and bringing him water and cookies to hand out. And he was just like, what? And I'm like, I came from stalking you on Facebook.
Yeah.
Like that's, and we're great friends. He's given me tons of business, and he is super successful on Instagram and has like a monthly meetup thing that tons and tons of investors come to. And So yeah, social media is a real game changer, whether it's just letting you know about local functions going on, things that you might want to be a part of, that you might want to put up a table at, that you might want to go to, or as a loan officer, really, when agents post their open houses on there, just go show up and meet them,
Yeah.
and bring them some pricing scenarios. Like that's what
They
that.
love that. They're like, yeah, I've had so many realtors recently. It's like, I don't need you to be there. I just need you to give me some flyers. So when someone asks me a question about the house in terms of financing, I have a sheet that I can give them because they're like, I don't know how to answer it.
Yeah, I mean, I have found that when they already have a lender with them, they're not as excited to see me. Uh,
No.
but so many times, lenders don't really want to go stand around at open houses. Um,
I
so
know.
and you might hit them up ahead of time and say, "Hey, are you doing? Maybe offer to go to the open house with them. But even if you're busy, offer to bring them some pricing scenarios or." Some water and treats, coffee, donuts.
Yeah.
What can you bring for $5 to an open house and make a friend out of an agent?
Yeah. And I think you just kind of nailed it with everything too. It's like there's just such small little things that you can do. And Fabi and I, who's not on this episode, but he and I always kind of go back and forth. He's really big into like the AI right now. And I'm more so like, oh, technology, it's got its pros, it's got its cons. But I always say that technology is the connector for me. So it's not the only source of how I'm getting my business, but it's open doors that just traditional showing up places or doing a phone call would never open for me. So I think just the combination of everything you said, getting in front of people, using social media to find out what's out there, whether it's in your local community for volunteer opportunities, someone is having an event that you can show up to, a realtor posted about an open house, pretty much any way that you can go and show support to someone or something will always resonate further, in my opinion, than, picking up the phone, hey, how are you, checking in.
Yeah, definitely. And I like to do my rounds and bring people little surprise gifts of pop by presents of, sometimes I bring a plant, sometimes I might just show up at your work with coffee or whatever, like there's a
Yeah.
lot of different ways you can just really for me, one of the hard parts sometimes is getting out of my shell and just like wanting to just go cold call or just cold pop by somebody. Like I think we all get bouts of, nerves or whatever that is that makes us feel like, oh, that person's too busy to talk to me or whatever. But like in reality, when you go out of your way and show someone that you were thinking about them and bring them a little trinket or just whatever, stop by with, Mother's Day, so and so. I try to do, some seasonal things throughout the year. People are
Top
so
of mind. You just
no,
have to be top of mind. How
yeah,
many times I've called realtors and I'm just like, hey, whatever the situation. And they're like, oh, I was actually, just talking with the client, and then they'll send over the deal. And it's like, if I didn't just call them to make that connection or just to check in or do something, they might have given it to someone else because I wasn't top of mind.
yeah, exactly. So
I
I
love
think that,
it.
being sincere and doing the things that just come naturally to you. We all have our different unique talents and everything, and we can just really dig deep and find those and apply them to our relationships. And whether those are with clients or realtors or networking buddies, it's really just all about the relationships in this business.
Always, 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 always. Well, we are coming towards the 45-minute marker. So, with that, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on today's episode. It was so lovely meeting you and just kind of getting to hear from someone that's been doing this a little bit longer than I have. I've only been doing this for 3 years, so it's not hard to kind of beat me in that sense, but it's just refreshing to see that there's other females out there, whether it's on the East Coast, the West Coast, that are doing right by their clients, really getting out there and focusing on building relationships more than they are transactions. And like you said, everything comes full circle. So, Stephanie, thank you so much for being on here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Madison. It was a real pleasure.
You too, and enjoy the rest of that spring weather. Hopefully, it stays good for you through the summer.
Yes, thanks.
JP, take us out.